that is the CDHR. Right, so he's a human rights activist, a public affairs commentator, as well as a social analyst. But then let's just delve into the matter in ground, as we'll be looking at the challenges and the delays in implementing the Nigerian Students Loan Scheme and what implication it has for the higher education access. Right, so is it any news anymore, the fact that there's been a suspension to it? Well, the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, that is the NEL Fund, the portal for students, was supposedly to launch in March. And that was according to Akintunde Sawyer, who happens to be the executive secretary of the NEL Fund. So the Access to Higher Education Bill was signed into law by President Bola Tinubu in 2023, and that law was to provide Nigerian students interest-free loans, but it seems as though its implementation has faced some delays. Well, Sawyer had explained that the delays were due to some technical reasons and that there was a need for proper execution of the program, and then it brings to question whether or not there was a proper planning and thinking through of the process, from the very beginning before even bringing it out to the public and initiating the scheme, even though it is also a laudable one because the scheme has some merits. But then for you to say at a place of authority, being the executive secretary, that there were technical reasons and the need for proper execution of the program, okay, it just begs the question of how much was your preparedness for this very initiative in the first place. And the loan recovery process was planned to start about 2 years. Exactly 2 years after the said Students National Youth Service, core scheme completion. And I'm just giving you the highlights of this very student loan. However, the launch of this, Nigerian Students Loan Scheme has been postponed indefinitely. At first, it was postponed. It was said to commence in September last year. But then it was also moved from September, and it was said to, commence, in March. And now the latest is that it is postponed, indefinitely. And this is due to need for corrections. As stated by Sawyer right there in an interview where he was interviewed on national television. Now, President Tinubu had signed, let's just take you a little bit, into how this whole thing started. So President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has signed, the bill into law and initially planning for it to start in 2023, but then the usual language of facing delays, went down, and of course Nigerians became patient. And in fact, Minister of Education, Minister of State for Education, that's talking about Yusuf Sununu, had confirmed that preparations were complete for the scheme's launch in January, but it was postponed again. So from September to January, and from January to March, and now in March it now gets into an indefinite postponement. But then the president kept on assuring the National Association of Nigerian Students that the scheme would begin once expanded to include vocational, studies. Now, what are the basic concerns that one might want to look at with regards to this conversation? One of such concerns will be the constant, repeated postponement of the loan scheme's launch, which is raising questions about its readiness as well as its effectiveness. And another concern will be some delays in implementing such, programs could also impact students, access to higher education as well as financial support. Now, the need for correctness or corrections and some alignments among stakeholders indicates some potential issues with the program structure or planning, and it raises quite a number of questions. I tell you, it raises quite a number of questions, as many Nigerians had expected more from this particular initiative. But then there are some hopes that it might be revived, but these hopes seems to be bleak. As looking further into the matter, you'd also discover that the program, has been postponed severally, and it seems as though Nigerians are losing faith, in the possibility of this program in the very first place. And what Nigerians are saying is, how do you quash something that many had high hopes looking forward to? Because there are some talk that the very purpose of this would have helped in addressing school dropouts. It would have helped in addressing suicidal tendencies, and it would have also allowed for financially disadvantaged students who cannot fund their journey towards obtaining a higher education to have a chance to saying that, look, we also we are also a part of a system that works. But then we should also bring it to your knowledge the fact that the ASU president at the time had countered this move. In fact, the ASU president at the time had said that it was not in the best interest of Nigerians, especially those who are at disadvantage, because when you look at the situation of graduates who have been churned out of universities on a yearly basis, and you look at the place of unemployment as it stands, it just tells you that, look, what is the point, Speedy, saying that you're getting loans for students who are somewhat impoverished or from impoverished homes, and then they get into schools, and then they come out of schools, and there are no provisions for these students to be, for these people to be absorbed into gainful employment. That is not the way forward, in that regard. That what the government should have focused more, according to Emmanuel Osodike, should have been about building and consolidating on university infrastructure, and giving the universities a fair chance to having, not just structures, but as well as educational instruments that would aid, proper learning. But then I don't know what your thoughts are on that. What do you think about this indefinite suspension of the students' loan scheme, which quite a number of persons had some high hopes, in engaging? There has also been the place of whether or not it will allow for access for the people who are indeed in need of the loans, to get involved, or to get, these loans. And the process of repayment has also been a source of concern. Hello to you. Let's talk with a guest now. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, I will just get through to him in a short bit. Right now, it's pretty hard to really connect with him, so we'll still connect with our guest in a short bit. Keep it in mind that our guest is in the person of Comrade Gerald Kachi, and he is going to be talking in this regard with us as we engage this conversation. And let's just open the phone lines and hear from you. And when he does come aboard, we would engage the conversation and ask those salient questions. Because, overall, generally, What are your thoughts? I mean, the conversation has been about, first of all, postponement here and there, and then at some point it was about looking into matters that concern, that it had to also engage those who are from the vocational, field. And then at some point, again, they said that they had to look into it because it was not in totality covering the purpose and the aim. And then finally, it has jolted into an indefinite suspension. Right now, 0907-353-0044 is that number to call. The other number is 0908-766-8888. Hello, good morning.
Thank you, Barrister Daniel.
Yeah, good morning to you. Is this Obasanjo?
Thank you. It's Obasanjo from Amali.
All right, Obasanjo, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Daniel. And some of us has already knew, and we have said it for a long time, that the government has no plan for Nigeria. I am telling you, a lot of issues has been raised pertaining to student loan. Not even student loan alone now. Wages, civil servants, minimum wage, and NNPC. They will open it December last year, up to date, and a lot of promises that the government set, and up to date, there's no single promise that you see they have implemented. So most of people have commented, they have seen it already that is coming. The government has no way, has no future for Nigerians. Has no future for Nigerians. A single future. All what we have, Barrister Daniel. It's every day changing of this one to this one, pardon to not pardon. You were there, I was not there. All those things they are in. So we have nothing to say than to say, God, come to our rescue. God, is you that will talk about you. We're not talking about this government. We only said what they cannot do, and they will come up on air. They will say they will do. So another issue will come. They will say, this is the reasons that will make us not to implement that student loan. They have plenty ways. You know, Satan has plenty ways. Devil has plenty way of tagging people.
All right.
Thank you. God
all right,
bless
Obasanjo.
Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Obasanjo right there saying that there has been some inadequacies with the government, and even though curbing the situation or addressing the situation and making this initiative work, is right in front of them, they're not taking that serious move towards ensuring that these situations are indeed brought into processes that would align and allow for Nigerian students to benefit. But then, need I also let you in on the fact that the actual idea, of this very loan, this student loan process that was signed into law by President Bola Tinubu. That was on 12th June last year. It was the Access to Tertiary Act. That's what is also known as the Student Loan Act. And it was expected to provide easy access to higher education for poor students and through interest free loans. But was this a terrible initiative? I mean, if you ask me, it would mean that the president is saying that I know that there are, financially disadvantaged students who probably we have the mind, they have the will, they have the brains to go to school, but then they are not allowed the opportunity due to their financial status to get to school. It would also mean that the president has the feeling of Nigerian students having probably assessed the situation and probably having the right advice in this regard. And the president is saying that, look, as a way out, knowing that we have not students and youths who have giftings, who have talents, who should be in school and not engage in crime, we should set up this initiative. So it could be said to have a goodwill. In fact, under the scheme, eligible applicants will receive up to 500,000, naira, and the scheme also was to ensure the rights to eligible applicants to access the loan without discrimination based on gender, based on religion, or based on where you're from, your tribe, or your social position, or even disability. Now, let's look at the fact that Nigeria has up to 18% annual school dropouts, and this is attributed to financial constraints. Now, 18% annual school dropouts, with hopes that this would help, combat suicidal tendencies and deter desperate poor students from engaging in vices. We already talked about that. Now, KPMG, that's talking about the renowned global tax and audit services firm, had last year projected that Nigeria's unemployment figure will rise to about 40.6% in 2023, and that is from a 37.7% in 2022. And this percentage, or the percentage this year, it just begs to be seen. Now, with the current economic situation and condition in Nigeria, a student loan scheme will create more problems. And that is according to Professor Emmanuel Osadike right there. In fact, he says that it will create more problems than the ones we are attempting to solve. It says ASU will never support the issue of education banks because the poor will not benefit from it. Now, do you really not think or see the light at the end of a tunnel, just as our president would say that, hey, it is time for us to see light at the end of the tunnel and not just base it on, issues that we may not be able to do. Right? The fear of not doing at all should be the greatest fear of all time, right? Do you not see the goodwill in it? And if you saw the goodwill in it, some are beginning to say that maybe it's not just the president, halting this process, that it is the federal government that is halting this process. But how do you differentiate the federal government from the president when it becomes an initiative that the president had thought to put into the process to ensuring that certain people of society, groups of the society, talking about students, are indeed catered for and allowed to see a very seamless education process? Hello.
Yes, hello, good morning to you, Dr. Ubak.
Good morning to you, please. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, this is Omotayo, reaching you from Galadimawa.
All right, Omotayo, let's have your take.
All right, so, Doctor, I heard you talking about, the topic, student loan initiative being suspended.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ubak, I want to ask you a very sincere question, coming from deep down my heart. Were you actually expecting that this initiative will work under this very government? Were you expectant?
Which is being hopeful. Yes.
I am sorry to dash your hopefulness, your expectations.
But many Nigerians expected it. Many Nigerians expected.
So I'm sorry, but their expectations have been dashed against the rock. I wasn't expectant. The reason I wasn't expectant is from the moment this government came in and began to make part from the first 2-3 months of this government, I already knew that there was nothing to expect from the government. There was no policies this government was going to make that was going to favor the masses. This government made themselves clear to Nigerians that they only came as an opportunist, as people who thought they would, come into power and loot whatever is left of the reserve, not knowing that there was nothing, almost nothing in the reserve anymore. So whatever policies they are in place, sir, I tell you, I'm sorry, sir, it's only to favor the children of the elite. And since the children of the elite are not schooling here in Nigeria, they are almost all abroad.
All right.
Will definitely not work.
All right,
because
Omotayo.
the elites are the ones in charge of powering this thing and bringing in the light of the day. Since their children will not benefit, I'm sorry, it's a waste of time. Thank you. God bless you, sir.
Okay, well, Omotayo right there saying that would be your thoughts. But then some of us who believe, or I'm sure most Nigerians, most of us who still believe in the Nigerian process, had expected and expectedly that this very scheme and initiative should come to fruition, because many of the social vices that we find today has been allotted to the fact that Nigerian youths have not been able to either be gainfully employed, that's one, or have not had access to education. And that, of course, is not going away from the fact that finances, had played a very strong role in that very process. If we had our youths get to school, get educated, maybe just some of these crimes, some of these antisocial activities and behavior, we would not have to grapple with them. Maybe then some education, some understanding, would have gotten into their brains such that they know the responsibility on their shoulders. And that is why a lot of us had looked forward to it. And many Nigerians too have been looking forward to it. And it is not out of place to, support an initiative, especially when a government is doing well. You should be able to say, oh yes, that is something good, and we see what effect it will have on the society. There's nothing wrong about it. But then when hopes are being dashed the way it is dashed right there, it gets on to asking the questions of, was this indeed in the first place a propaganda? Right? Or is this something that is the president even aware that this situation has come to where it is? Because he is the one who had signed it into law last year, June the 12th, 2023, meaning that this is something that, is in the heart of the president right there. But then could it be that somewhere along the line there are people, bottlenecks, who are stepping in the middle of the process, acting as middlemen, and then saboteuring, or sabotaging the very existence of what the process should be entirely about? That is the concern. And even though the ASU president had said that, look, as a solution to some of those issues that we face, especially when it comes to matters that concern the student loan initiative, that it was not a step in the right direction, even though it looked promising. But then it will only add more problems, because what should be done is to strengthen the tertiary institutions, and that way that it will just allow for those who are already within the system of education to graduate and have something to look forward to. Now, what is the point of initiating this, program or initiative where these students begin to have so much access into the tertiary institutions, and then they come outside of the tertiary institutions without anything to do because their discipline cannot be absorbed, in the society. There are no industries, there are no agencies, there are no jobs to absorb, the multitude of these graduates. And that has been the concern. But what are your concerns? And what would you have expected the government to do rightly in this regard to ensuring that things, did not indeed snowball into where we are at the moment? But then we'll just very quickly go on this very short break, pay some bills. When we do come back, we would hopefully have that conversation, and not just with me, but with our guest, via phone call. Stay and don't go away.
No offense to the commercials. It's just that we want to see other audio.
Eagles 102.3.
Hi there. Do you want to know how to get the correct approval or documents for your land and property? Do you need the right information on how you can prevent your building from being demolished? Then tune in to Town Planning Program on Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja every Thursday by 5 p.m.
No offense to the commercials. It's just that we want to see other audio.
Eagles 102.3.
Before we reach the promised land, let's save Nigeria, so Nigeria won't die. Which way Nigeria? Which way Nigeria? Tell me which way to go. I love my fatherland. Oh yeah, I want to know. Yes, I want to know which way Nigeria is heading to. Every little thing that goes wrong, we start to blame the government. We know everything that goes wrong because we are part of the government. Let's save Nigeria, so Nigeria won't die. Which way Nigeria? Which way Nigeria? Tell me which way to go. Which way to go? I love my fatherland. Oh yeah, I want to know. Want to know. Inflation is very high. Let's save Nigeria, so Nigeria won't die. Which way Nigeria? Which way Nigeria? Which way to go? Which way to go? I love my fatherland. Oh sure, sure. I want to know. Yes, I want to know. Which way Nigeria is heading to? We made mistakes, oil from not knowing how to do. Some people now have everything, while many have nothing. Let's save Nigeria, so Nigeria won't fall.
Welcome back. This is Eagles Outlook right here on Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja. And yes, the conversation is still trending and it's all about the president. Well, we have our guest. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Comrade Gerald Kachi. Welcome aboard. Are you there?
It's my pleasure.
Right.
Yeah, good morning too.
Yeah, so, Comrade, there has been bickerings and back and forth here and there about the student loan initiative as put together by the federal government. If you recall, as last year, if I'm not mistaken, June 12, the president had signed it into law, and it was supposed to take off in September, I think 1st of September, but then there were some conversations about, one or two things that needed to be done and all of that, and it was pushed to January of this year. January of this year again, we got, another off saying that, hey, we cannot implement this just yet. We have to consider the vocational people and all of that, integrate quite a number of English, being spoken. And Nigerians were patient enough, and it was pushed to March 1st. And now in March, here we are to wake up to the news of an indefinite suspension. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, it's unfortunate that suspending students, Nigerian students supposed to be from. And why I say it's unfortunate because in situations that regards to the ruling class, there's no suspension. When they want to buy SUV, there's no suspension. When there's palliative given to them, to go to their constituency, there's no shifting. When there is padding or what have you, there's no shifting. But when it comes to the programs that will directly impact and positively in the lives of the citizens, there's always technicalities, grammars, shifting, excuses and what have you. I think it's time that as the people, especially the youth, need to stand up, demand answers to all these rhetorics. This is more than 3 shiftings, and we don't know when it will end. And at the end of the day, when they finally announce it, don't be surprised you begin to hear a lot of scandals.
Right.
There can never be a perfect program. You learn in it. Once you commence the program, there's always room for improvement. You must not wait until you get everything perfect. If you wait to get everything perfect, you may end up, getting the whole thing, confused and getting the whole thing messed up. You got to start from somewhere, and then give rooms for improvement. Well, no matter how they prepare, there will always be room for improvement. So they shouldn't be giving excuses, technicalities. You want to do this, you want to do that. If you continue like that, we end up giving excuses.
Right. Well, let me take you to something a caller, had called a while ago to saying that, look, as it stands right now, that he never saw this coming to fruition. Why? Because most thoughts.
No, I don't share the thoughts. If you recall, most of the elites have their words, working in high-profile agencies, corporations, what have you, NNPC, CBN, and the others. That does not mean that does not stop to the federal government of Nigeria from setting up Empower and other programs they did. You understand? They're just trying to use it as a reference, that the elites, children in Harvard, Oxford, or what have you, cannot stop the program. But then, shifting it gives room for comments like that. Shifting it raises suspicion, that, give worry to some of these things. You recall, there have been a lot of laudables and wonderful projects or ideas that this federal government from the time past have pushed to the public. But at the end of the day, scandals that we used to see, like school feeding, like trader money, like
anchor borrowers and
and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, say a lot of scam. But does it mean that there are no benefits? There were benefits. You understand? Those loopholes, that we foresee in some of those programs is what you also see in this one. There's no way they did that there have no be loopholes, but then you learn in it.
Right.
You learn in it. The areas that need amendments, you amend it. You cannot have a perfect program. They don't need to be shifting it again. They are giving room for talks like this, and it's making people to lose even more confidence. Right. The ones that manage some elements of confidence with the government, shifting it makes them to drop the confidence.
Right. All right. Let me also take you back into last year, where the ASU president, Emmanuel support of this initiative from the very birthing of this initiative. Why? Because they believed that it was only going to cause more problems, especially when you look at some of the thought line that the initiative carried for defaulters who would not be able to pay back this loan within a specified or stipulated time and all of that. And Osodeke also went on to saying that, look, as it stands, it's not about getting people into school and making them graduate. It's about consolidating on, the institutions themselves, and and then what's the point of having students graduate without having jobs that can absorb their discipline? What are your thoughts, about this?
Oh yes, the Professor Osodeke point is very, very valid, and I share his thoughts. But then I think if we look at the outcome of events before we commence, in most cases you will not achieve any success. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that before then, during the time of the Professor Sodeke, I mean years back, before you graduate in the 70s, there are works already waiting for you. People will start looking, especially if you're a bright student. You understand? Even then, there are benefits that government gives to students. But then that does not stop us from progressing. Today, we have a lot of graduates that they don't have work in Nigeria, but then they find their way outside the shoes of this country, and they do very well, and they give returns that help to boost our economy. So it goes in a different way. So you cannot foresee maybe depression or frustration of repaying back the loan, are using it to stop people from progressing. No, it's just like bank giving you loan. That some persons were not successful with the loan obtained by facilities obtained from financial or commercial institutes. Does not mean that people will not continue. For every failure, you will see people that succeed in it. You understand? I'm sure that this program, well carefully implemented, will move our country to the next realm of progression. That we have all yearned and anticipated and worked towards. Work for. But many that will succeed, we create a enabling environment for others. There are people that are very creative, that all they need is, fine-tuning their skills with all this education and training.
Right.
It will help them to be very productive. And I'm sure that if you are productive in one way or the other and distinguish yourself, not just the students, there will be other support or grants that will help you to kickstart whatever you are doing.
All right, comrade, but many believe that this might just be the end of it. I mean, since this suspension is indefinite, what are your thoughts?
I'm sure that the embarrassment is much by on the side of the federal government with regards to giving a date, and they are not able to meet up the date. And maybe they are trying to be skeptic, I know, to avoid. It doesn't, to me, as a person, it doesn't make much sense to me that you try something you fail does not mean that you should not try again. You need great ideas attempt several times before they succeeded. So you shouldn't put it in the return to date. They have not been defeated. There are people that on the Nigerian citizens.
Yeah. All right. We'll look at the possible trust that many of these students who have been expectant of this initiative have, in the government. But then let's put a peg to your thoughts, open the phone lines so that Nigerians can have their voice in the conversation. You also want to have a voice in the conversation, ask a salient question, right? And contribute to the progress of the discourse. You can do that. 7 for your messaging as well. And you can do that via 0909 705 4450. And Twitter stands at the moment as it stands. Are there ways that or roles that stakeholders, including government officials, educational institutions, should play in ensuring the success of programs like this?
Oh yes, there are roles, especially events. Have maybe sign. I'm sure some of the frustration they are facing now is trying to follow due process. Trying to ensure that you go from this table to another table, from this table to another table. Getting a lot of things. It's not a seamless implementation of it, because as it is today, for them to commence it, they have to work with the Ministry of Education,
right?
Ministry of Finance,
and
Budget.
Yeah, go on.
A whole lot of persons need to work together, including National Assembly,
some
committees that are on education, and privilege. A lot of persons have to come together. I think But with executive order, some of this can be jettisoned. Some of this can be set aside so that they will have a direct impact.
But that's what brings to bear the thought about this entire process, and some quarters believe that maybe just maybe because the federal government has not done the due diligence in engaging these other relevant authorities in the process. That's why we are having this indefinite suspension. But it takes us back to the from the very start of initializing this project or this initiative in the first place. Could it be that it was not well thought of or thought through?
I think it was well thought through because it was a program that came out from legislative intervention or action. It was sponsored at the National Assembly and they moved, and at the end of the day, the president assented to it. It's something I'm sure that went through process. But then, in implementation, if you begin to do all those bureaucratic, honestly, this is what you get. I think it's time he sign executive order or possibly find a way to navigate all these bottlenecks. But some of the things that are frustrating this is different ideas. Just like when you want to prepare a meal, everybody's bringing his own idea to in the preparation of the meal. At the end of the day, the meal may not make sense because by the time party brings one season, another person brings another item. It will not be good. So I think they need to find a way to make sure that the thing starts, if possible, between now and next week.
Well, yeah.
There shouldn't be further